Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Kath, and today I'm looking deeper into cell counts. So having a good explore round of all the cell count information and analysis that is on Herd Companion. I have started recording. I'm doing things slightly differently today and pressed the record a long time ago, just so I've got everything set up ready. If you have any questions as we go through, please do use the Q&A, and I'll see those on my screen at the end. So I'll leave those to the end if that's okay. With all these recordings, I know it's often, busy on farm. You can't always make it. So they are always recorded, all of my webinars, and we put them onto the NMR YouTube channel. There's a whole selection of videos on there. The last one I did was the beginner webinar on Herd Companion, which sort of talked through basic introductory level of various different reports. So that one is also on there, and I will be repeating that in March and again in April. So watch out for those going forward. If you have, before I start, anything you'd like to cover on Herd Companion, I'm always after comments, tips, anything you would like to hear, general feedback, please do a webinar on such and such. Do drop me an email. It's my email address on the screen there, or give us a call and make some suggestions. Absolutely love to hear from you. So without further ado, let's have a look at Herd Companion. So there are a few different bits on here relating to cell counts, some of which you might not have seen before. The first one in the production menu is Selective Dry Cow. Now, this is one I've opened up earlier. So it opens up in a separate tab, and you've got then a whole sheet on various different overviews of your cell counts. It tells you where the data is coming from as well. So if you aren't full recording, there's little segments of Herd Companion you can still access, and this is one of them because we've got data coming in from NML as well. So this first graph, data provided by NML, this is based on your bulk milk sample. So it gives you a really nice graph and feel for the fluctuations, day in, day out, and an average over the year, and then your proportion of the results that are over 200 and so on. So it's just an interest sake. You can get that in the payment tests MQM section as well, but just collating everything together on here. As we scroll down, we then have an individual cell count section. So this is recording with NMR. And there's a really interesting figure in here to draw your attention to, and that's this one. Maximum lactation SCC less than 200. What on earth does that mean? Well, it just shows that for all the cell counts across all the lactations for all your cows, 43% of them were under 200,000 cells, which is, in this case, nearly half the herd had no infections whatsoever. So it gives us a good basis to decide for the selective dry cow therapy side. We've got a lot of healthy cows within the herd, so it's a real overview nonetheless, but gives you an insight into how much of the herd is affected. And then if your cutoff is lower, you've got 32% that are under 150 as well as an indicator there. Dry period management, we'll be looking at this one in a bit more detail as well. So this is basically a graph, and it's a little bit small on this one, so we can delve into the bigger one on screen in a minute. But gives you an idea of, again, fluctuations, but for drying off. So more specifically, the cell count before drying off, was it high or low? Simple question. Compared to the cell count after calving, again, high or low. So what are our infection rates like? What are our cure rates and protection rates as well? So we'll come back to that one in a bit more detail, but you can just sort of get an overview, a feel here for, low to low is what we're always aiming for. What proportion of my herd is successfully achieving that? Then we have a little bit of mastitis. So if your graph is empty here, let's have your mastitis cases. Why are they not coming in? There's nothing extra. We don't, publish anything without your consent. So it is there for your benefit, for you and your advisors to make use of. So absolutely, please send us your mastitis cases or give them to your recorder. You can see then here total cases in the year, what that looks like as a percentage, and index cases, so how many are occurring in that first 30 days of milk as well. So I'm hoping that this is, if it's not a surprise you're using it regularly, or if it's a surprise, then that's a good surprise that we have got this level of detail on these sorts of reports. So cases over the year as well as a graph, and then the line alongside is your population. Other way around, actually, sorry. The bar chart's population. The line is the cases, beg your pardon. This one here, now this is extra testing. So again, from a bulk perspective, if you want to do any pathogen breakdowns, you can test for those. They can be done, give us a call and we can actually use the last bulk milk sample that was given. They're kept in our fridge for 7 days, and we can get to this level of detail as an ongoing quarterly test. So you can see then if things are increasing in terms of prevalence or not. And as with all these things, do discuss with your vet the right courses of action and which tests will be more appropriate for you. So all of that together is the Selective Dry Cow Tool. Okay, so I'll go back to our site. So you'll find that under the production menu here. And we're staying with this area. Just want to go into the cell count report. Now this is also known as Swift Cell Checker. You'll find it in a couple of places. I did cover this last time, but this is where all the detail is maintained really. So I don't think a recap will hurt in this case. So we have a range, lower range of 200, upper range as high as you can get, and a high cell count threshold. Now that threshold is always 200 for everybody. You can change it in here and apply, and then it will affect this particular page on the website. There are other settings that will affect obviously the relevant page that they're on as well. So that's your threshold. Lower range is 200 as well, because if we look down here for the individual cows, this only shows by default everybody over 200. So in this particular example, we've only got 13 cows anyway. So if you're thinking, where's the rest of my herd? I want to see it. Just take out that one, pop in a 0, apply. And then we have a slight refresh. There we go. Now we're back to the whole herd present at the last recording. So this one grid can give you an awful lot of information without having to dig too deep. In cell count descending order, anything above that threshold is therefore highlighted in pink. Anything above 500 is highlighted in a bold red here. And we also have the previous cell count, 2 and 3. So the last 4 recordings, how many consecutive highs those cows have had, contribution to bulk, we can sort by that one as well, often not always the highest cow contributing the most, although it looks like it is in this case. Let me just sort that one. So with all of these herd companion reports, you can just click on a heading, it will refresh into ascending order generally, then click again. So a single left click, and that puts it into descending order. So actually in this case, yeah, we've got a similar sort of pattern for those high cows. Now, if you're looking for a bit of history, so I do often get asked, I want to see all of the cell counts for the lactation on every single test in one grid. Well, we haven't got that on here, but the argument to counter that would be, do you actually need every single cell count? Can this report not tell you enough anyway? High's previous lactation, so we know straight away that this cow has been a chronic cow for a long time, previous lactation and current. Maximum consecutive highs, so that's how many highs were recorded together. So one recording, then the next, then the next. Whether it's monthly or intermittent, it still gives you an indication of how many have been high. So she's had 4 highs in total anyway, one after the other. So really, with those bits there, then we've got mastitis cases as well, clinical cases that have been recorded, and the number of recordings. It's enough detail to decide how chronic a cow is, or is it a repeat, or is it a first, and so on. Now, on that note, this SCC type here is a really useful way of just identifying how bad is the cell counts for these particular cows? When is it occurring? Have we got dry period origin? Have we got lactation origin? I'm going to come back to that in a second, but I just want to go up to the next sort of overview, really, which is the SCC status. Now, we can get to it from here because it's all related to this overall health monitor. So click on this one. I could have started with this one actually, but the cell count report is one of those that everybody goes to straight away after recording. So, you know, we can take a step back and look at trends over time on here as well. Again, we have our threshold, so this will always revert back to 200. So that's one pro point really of Her Companion. Everything puts itself back together again. If you have a little click here and a little tweak there, it will always revert back to its original state. Okay, so that gives us our trend here. We can see then for these areas over the last couple of years, what proportion of the herd have been chronic, and you've got your percentages here to read from after each recording. We then have a repeat level, a first infection in yellow, so that one's pretty much minimal most of the time, and a new infection in purple. And then the rest of it, the green mountains in behind, are the cows that have got better, that were never a problem in the first place, or, you know, come back uninfected. So these 4 sections are important, and I'm going to explain what they mean with the graphic I've got here. That one there we go. So we did have this on Her Companion in the notes, and I don't know that it's there anymore, but it's a real clear illustration of what we mean by a chronic cow or a new cow. And some of you might recognize these screenshots as well from old Interherd. So a new case, you can see these are all cell counts. Very simply, this is an individual cow, cell count plotted on a graph. It's gone red. She's gone over our threshold for the first time in her lactation, but it's not the first recording. That would constitute this one. Very first recording after calving, and she's high. Okay, so that's the difference between a new case, suddenly popped up out of nowhere, and a first case, calved in, high straight off. So if you're getting a lot of these, then we can be looking at the dry period status as well to see, you know, were they high before drying off also, in which case we're not curing anything. Or are they popping up out of nowhere? Are they, you know, getting infected at fresh calving situations, or across the dry period not effective enough? Repeat. So this one, this is high now, this month, or this recording. Low last time, but we've had a high previously. Now that line can move as long as it's not next to our current recording, but it's something that's flared up again, having been cured or self-cured or whatever. Chronic cows might look like this. They might just have 2 red bars. So the chronic cows are high this month, so again above that threshold, and were high last month. And by month I mean, you know, last recording as well. Okay, so hopefully that gives a nice clear indication of what we're talking about. So let's go back to here. So with that in mind, you can see then trends over time. Are things seasonal? Is it related to certain management practices over the year? Do you start to see a repeat where we've got, you know, little peaks happening at turnout or at, you know, in the winter time? All sorts of questions you can discuss with your advisor and your vet on that one. Then we can see more of a trend in terms of numbers. So these grids, again, you can sort by, you can filter out, but it just gives you an eyeball down. I mean, this is what the graph does for you anyway, but, you know, chronics, sometimes numbers are actually clearer than the picture, but you can actually see, you know, we've had a peak around about June here for chronics, which then maintained at a certain level was now pretty low. Against cows milked, so yeah, fairly consistent now for here. Herd average cell count, apart from the odd time, has been pretty good as an average, and the proportion of the herd over 200, you know, that crept up to a quarter of the herd in some stages. So there's lots of information there to draw out as well. Again, with anything on Her Companion, you can export your report. So if you want to take it offline and share it to somebody on a piece of paper, you know, export out of here really quickly. Just create a PDF of that table or a spreadsheet if you so wish. So once we know that we've had a proportion of the herd, now looking at January, you know, only 4 cows were chronic there. In terms of identifying who they are, this is when you can then go back into your Swift cell checker. Go back on this one again and just have a quick peek here. Now this is back to my cows over 200, which by definition will include all the chronics anyway. So I can just type chronic in here into my filter, and as soon as you stop typing, it does a quick refresh. So there's the 4 cows in question, and we can just study those and see, yeah, okay, how chronic is chronic? How bad have they been previously? What were the cell counts like before, and how many times? So it's all there, it's all there. If I wanted to see maybe the first cases, take that back out again. If you're using lots of these filters, you can just, oh, she says clear. No, you can't on this table. So on some of the other ones, sorry, there's usually a clear button here to clear the filters, but not on this one. No matter, we can just take that out, pop in first. There we are. And then we've got a handful of cows just calved in, not long. So days in milk is here as well. And they've come in high. So again, what were they up to previously? You know, they've only had the one recording, so we maybe need to give them time to adjust and keep an eye on those for sure as they go into their lactation. Okay, so the other element is the dry period, and that's this one here. So these are all, if you start from scratch and you want to dive straight in, you know, cell count report, that's your individual cell count list. Cell count status is the overview, the trends over time, how many chronics, etc., and then dry period here. So that's the same as that one. There we go. Okay, so again, adjust your thresholds as you need to. If you want to go back a bit in time, you can look at previous recordings. And then we've got a really nice graph to see what's been happening. So dry period performance. Cell count before drying off compared to cell count afterwards. So for each cow and then grouped together by these 4 categories. Over the last couple of years. So pretty much high to high on this one. Little peak here, 7% of the herd back in August 22. You know, drilled down to nothing pretty much there. Possibly on its way up, but it is a tiny number. So those are, you know, cell count was high at drying off, has maintained high. Low to high, perhaps more concerning, big peak here, 50% of the herd. Now what happened there? Sometimes though, you know, block calving, it can be a very few cows, but just a lot that are, you know, are a trickle. So it can look worse than it is in a sense. So check on numbers there, but percentage cows calved. So we dried off low and we've possibly caught an infection, as I say. High to low, that's your cure rate, the yellow ones. And then low to low, no problem at all, have maintained that level of protection throughout. And it just gives you then a 3-month trend here. So this is over time, over the last couple of years. What sort of protection rates and cure rates are we looking at? So exactly the same principle, really. You want lots of green and not so much red, essentially. This one, a bit more interesting. Cell counts at drying off, low at dry versus high at dry. So, you know, it's all about working through where the infections are coming from and again, how bad they are maintained. Then you can see for that particular recording, actually identifying those cows that are in those categories. So if we come down a little bit more, the high to high cows, they're already grouped by this cell count change. And you can undo that if you just want a continuous list. But actually, and by undoing it, I mean literally grab that and pop it back into the table anywhere. Again, it will go back to its original state later on when you log out. So the high to high cows, let's just expand the page size. So if we make that 50 animals, there we go, we can just concentrate on these ones. So level of infection maintained, 6 cows. Actually, I need the headings just to go through. I'll minimise that one. High to high cell count. So what have we got on this table? Lots of numbers and brackets and things. So it's almost read back to front. Second to last cell count in the previous lactation. So they were on this sort of footing. Last cell count in previous lactation. So this is the one that's classed as high before drying off. So that's where they came from. Then we had the dry period. First cell count in the lactation is this one. So you can just see, you know, proportion of highs. Are we talking millionaire's row or are we talking 201? And the number in brackets is days in milk. So when in their lactation that first cell count occurred. Then some of them haven't got there yet, possibly, or were absent, but these ones have had a second test in their lactation. So they've come from this, you know, have they now sorted themselves out, or have we had to intervene with any treatments and that kind of thing? So days in milk right now, when that first cell count occurred as well. And again, previously, you know, some of these cows might be chronic right the way through, 11 out of 12 high tests. She isn't getting any better now. Well, potentially, but, you know, is that likely to flare up again? What else is going on with that cow and everything else? High to lows, success story. So those ones have sorted themselves out. And let's just have a look at the low to highs. So that's your cure rate, high to low. Low to low is protection. Low to high, like an infection rate, really. There we go. Okay, so similar sort of pattern, you know, anything you can deduce from these cows. So this is where they started off from, nice and low, and then we've in some cases gone really, really high. So it's all about looking at the, you know, the herd as a whole, but being able to drill down to specific groups of animals that you know, are doing certain things with their cell counts. So I hope that's given you a real flavour of the, you know, the functionality that Herd Companion has. It's available to you all of the time. As soon as your recording results are in there, you know, third parties, all of your advisors, your vet and so on, they will get notified. And if you're listening in and you're not being notified that a recording has taken place, you know, we can make sure those emails are sent through for your clients. And then the data is there for you to view, you know, wherever you are, because it's online, it's accessible. You know, do make use of it. And as I said at the start, if you have any other suggestions for particular topics you'd like to cover in future webinars, please do give me a shout. Any questions at all? Now then, is there a Herd Companion app? Not as such, no, but very good question. It's one we are discussing avidly in NMR right now. So if you want such a thing, please do let us know and badger us to get something developed. In terms of what an app will do, that is the question. So obviously development of it, there's lots of considerations there. But Herd Companion works on your mobile phone to a certain extent. Now, I know it's not perfect, but if you were looking at, you know, if you log in using your phone, let's go back to the cell count list here. Certain lists you can certainly see the data that you need. And I know that this one will be one that people will go to straight away. If you imagine as a phone, you're going to have your line number showing here, and it gets to about this point, and then you've got to scroll across or shrink the size. So it's not perfect at the minute, but as I say, discussions are happening right now in NMR as to how we go about making this more phone friendly, and or possibly an app as well. Data entry wise, if that's the argument there, you know, the data entry tool works absolutely brilliantly on a phone if you are looking to enter the data straight into Herd Companion. But for things like cell count lists, absolutely, what we would like to do is just to have a simplified version of this list. So if you're on your phone, you're out and about, you want to see cow number, that cell count column. Now I can pick that up and drag it over there, but not on a phone as easily. So yeah, point noted, absolutely. I will add you to my list of requests for the app for sure. So thank you for that. And if it's something else that you want on there that I haven't mentioned, then yeah, get in touch. You're most welcome. Thank you, Gethin. Anything else from anybody? Can you remind me how to make a list for antibiotics at drying off if threshold is 200? Yes. Oh, that's another report actually I could have done, isn't it? Let me do it now. So I reports, cows to dry. It's all cell count related, so very, very relevant. Absolutely. Now, this is where I find I haven't got anything to dry off at the moment. So due to dry in the next 30 days, I'm just going to extend mine a little. Cell count threshold, there's that magic number again. By all means, adjust. It's going to work for me. There we go. So let's say we've got some cows coming up for drying off fairly soon. Again, this contains all the information you would need to make those selective dry cow decisions, with a couple of adjustments potentially. So we are in drying off date order. That's the default. You can change it by line number or whatever you like. We've got sales -3, previous and latest. So those in reverse order, or well, in logical order for, you know, January, February, March, let's say. Those are the sale counts for those cows. Anything above the threshold shown in red. Anything above 500 shown in bold red. That's the last 3, which is good. How many highs have they had this lactation? That's this number here. So a lot of these 0 out of 5. How many mastitis cases? And you've got your yoni status as well. Now, what I would do, increase the page size if you need to. I mean, generally speaking, well, you might have the whole herd there if you're block calving. So that's fine. Then it gives you one long list. Sort by number of highs. So we can see, now ignore these numbers, of course, these are only fresh cows, but I'm just trying to give you an example. What I would also do, show extra columns. I'll bring up a little box. And there's a one in here called days since high. Pick that up, drop it into your table. And there's other bits as well you might find useful. Absolutely fine. So all of these number of highs, if you imagine these are typically when they're due to dry off, they're late lactation cows. So they might have had 0 out of 10 tests, let's say. So anything 0 out of, because we've sorted on this column, they've no high cell counts throughout the whole of their lactation. So those ones at the top of your list are absolutely fine, all healthy, good for teat sealant only. Now, I must put a caveat in here at this stage to say, talk to your vet, discuss with them the protocols here for you, absolutely. But this is all the information that you would need. I'm going to change this to all. As you go down the table then, you might pick out 1s and 2s. So these cows have had perhaps 1 or 2 high cell counts out of however many. You can see the last 3 cell counts to give you a flavour of when those cell counts occurred. So yeah, some red going on here, quite recent. If, for example, we find a cow here, so this row, cow 5098, the last 3 cell counts were low, but she's had 1 high test. So this is where it's really, really good. You don't need to look anywhere else. How many days ago, that's the column we've just brought in, how many days ago was the last high? Is it relevant for what we're doing right now? Was it long enough ago, you know, it was a one-off blip, or is it fairly recently? So that's your important figure there when you've got those borderline cases. So you're looking to see, you know, she's had 2 high cell counts, she's had 3 out of 12 maybe, you know, do we need to worry? I'm not the vet here, I can't advise, but absolutely crucial you talk to your advisor and decide. But with that information, it's everything you possibly need. Then we get to the bottom of the table. So, yeah, again, not the perfect example here, but 4 out of 4 tests high. The last high was 23 days ago. There it is. Prior to that, not much better. So these are your ones that would, you know, potentially be recommended for a full suite of dry cow therapy. Okay. So that was a long explanation there of how to make your list, but I hope that was the one you needed. But yeah, the cows to drive report is fantastic in here for all those selective dry cow decisions. No, all good. Right, I'm gonna call it there anyway. I think I've covered most things, so that's really good. Thank you very much for your time, and speak to you soon. Bye bye for now.